Yeah, my name is Gijs van Berg. I'm the creative director of KesselsKramer. But like you mentioned, I do not like being put in a box. I think being a creative doesn't really mean that you have to do one thing. I think creativity goes over many different disciplines and many different forms of being creative. So therefore, I like to make music. I like to design myself. I like to photograph, make films, but also be involved in coming up with commercial ideas for clients. Yeah, for me, photography and also communication is a way to look different at the world around us. So we are completely conditioned by how we have to read the world that we see as it is. And I think I see it as my job almost to help people see things in a different perspective. And also by, for example, with photography, putting these inflatables in locations that they are not necessarily seen often. I hope to create also the question with people saying, okay, how does it relate to each other? These two objects, where they are very far apart, yet they are very close by because they are about holiday destinations, but they are about different ways of looking at holidays. On one hand, you can embrace the natural phenomena and enjoy the beautiful nature, but on the other hand, most people enjoy the beach and the artificial created spots there. Mm. So it's also kind of a protest or a question about how do we travel? How does it impact the environment that we visit? And is it really still the actual destination that we visit? Or is it more the artificially created sunshine that we like? Yeah, I really like playing with new techniques, new technologies, new ways of communicating. I think it's also on one hand, the landscape is changing very differently. So there's many new media that have been joining the mix of possibilities, and I don't see that as a threat. I see that as a playground, and I would like to see, okay, how can I be relevant as a creative within these kind of scenes? And that's also why I don't like labeling things, because if you're a photographer, and then you have to behave like a photographer. But I can be a photographer, but if I want to be a digital artist, then I'm going to be a digital artist. Nobody's telling me what to do. And I like that new way of working, that it gives a lot of new possibilities. And I also like the development of many photographers becoming videographers. I think it's a good trend. For me, it's all about education. So I never went to art school. I've done a very boring economic degree, which I hated and which I finished because I had to pay for the school and I wanted to finish it because my parents paid for me, which I was very lucky and privileged to be in that position. So then, out of loyalty, I finished it. But my hunger was more towards creativity. And by not having a degree in art school, I see it as my kind of quest to investigate new art forms, and that for me it's a way of learning on how to deal with these things. And by not being taught very traditionally, I'm very open to learning new things, and it's more about I do it not because of because I have a background in it, but more because I have a hunger for it. I really like to learn about filmmaking, then I'm going to learn about filmmaking. And I think that is a nice possibility of this generation, is that when you are hungry for information, the information is there and it's available for everybody, but it's more in do you have the determination to look around, play with it, discover new things, and do you really have the hunger to make it work? I think that is the way this new generation of creators works. It's much more hybrid, I think. I think playfulness is super important, and having fun in your work will probably help you make the best work you've ever made. But I think if there's no purpose behind it or no reason to do it, then I think it's hollow. So KesselsKramer does not like to make creative work for the sake of being creative. We use creativity as a tool to convey people and tell them about stories that need to be told, whether it's a commercial story or maybe it's a more social story. And I think the thing is that in the creative industry, we all look too much inward. We celebrate award festivals together. We give each other compliments, but my mother doesn't give a shit. She's not at that festival. She's not appreciating the work in that way. And I think if we can use our creativity to talk to our parents that are not creatives, then we're doing something special. And therefore, I think being a creative is, on one hand, is very playful and can be very fun, but it also comes with a responsibility to use it for the right ways. Yeah, I started KesselsKramer like when I was already working for other companies, so I had already a little bit of experience with advertising agencies, but I never felt at home. So it always was a bit, okay, I can be an applied creative, but in the end, I would always love to be more like an autonomous artist, because then I get more freedom to do what I really want. Until the moment that I met Eric, and we had a conversation about creativity, and I felt that he was very sincere and honest about creativity. And also, I think that idea that it's more your own responsibility that you make creative work is something that really pulled me into KesselsKramer. And it's, I think also creativity can be a big competition. People can be like, they can envy each other, they can look at each other and really feel like, oh, I wish I made that, and I don't like this, and actually maybe you secretly do like it, but it's easy to criticize. And I think what Eric learned me is that actually the competition should be with yourself. You should kind of challenge yourself in coming up with better ideas, and it's good to look in the mirror and say like, hey, today I have the power of creativity. Did I use it for the right ways? And if a client would give me money to spend, how would I spend it in a way that it's respectful towards a client? And I think that responsibility is what made me pull into KesselsKramer, and also made me feel very connected to the company, and working together closely with the people here, and seeing that also that is a very mutual value with all the people that are here. People feel responsible. They are not here to do crazy things. They are very responsible with the creativity that they do, and it's really not just creative for the sake of being creative, but creative to be valuable to the world, which I really like. And I think for me, being more and more involved in projects, and also stepping up and being a bit more involved in management, was a very natural move. Some people don't like it. Some people are brilliant as creatives, but they maybe don't like the part that they have to manage other people. For me, it was a perfect fit, and therefore it made sense to kind of make that transition into becoming a creative director, and also a partner of the company. But it doesn't mean that every creative has to do that. It has to be right. And I think if you see it as a career path, then it's a wrong view, because being a manager of a company is completely different than being a creative. And that is something that you have to, again, compete yourself, look in the mirror and say, do I really want to be managing a company, or do I want to make very good creative work? And for me, it was very natural to make that transition. We will never change the name. It's very clear that everything we do is because it was started by Johan and Eric in '96. And we still believe their intentions. We still completely believe their kind of vision about advertising. And it would be very weird to change that, because it's something that I feel really connected with. It's not that the name is the name as it is, and it was just a coincidence because it was the first name that they came up with. They could have also easily called it yada dada blah blah blah, and then it would have been called yada yada blah blah blah, and there wouldn't be like even a consideration to change it. But no, I would never wanted to change that name, and also because I think it is not about the name. It's about the work that you make and about being relevant. This is a very good question, because when Eric and Johan started KesselsKramer in '96, the times were completely different. The possibilities within the media landscape were very more limited. Also, creativity was very special, mythical almost, and I think for the transition has been that the creativity in the creative industry has been opening up a lot. So people have much more, clients have much more insight in how creative work is being made, which people are involved. They know the photographers that we work with. In the past, it was a mystique. It was very special to bring in a photographer or to. It was more Pandora's box. You would put in a brief and then you would wait a couple of weeks and there came out the creative idea. It doesn't work like that anymore, and it's also something that we have to accept, because on one hand it's difficult because you want to have pure creativity, radical ideas, but on the other hand you also want to build a good relationship with your clients. And what we see, I see as my challenge also, is to bridge the connection between creatives on the client side and the creatives that work here at KesselsKramer. I think they can be a very nice extension to each other if we allow the climate of working together more intensively. And we have clients that we actually work together very closely with. For example, to name one, citizenM hotels has a very good creative department. They have very talented designers. And we work very closely together because we have our own expertise. And by getting together and working closely together, we are able to make better work, which in the end is the most important goal. Yeah, Eric is he's at the company quite a lot. So he comes in the agency. Everybody knows Eric, and Eric is our founding father, I would almost say. And Eric is also very inspirational. So also for creatives that come into the company, they the first time they meet Eric, it's also a magical moment because he is of course one of the founders of this company, and it's very nice that he's still feeling that connection very strongly with the company that he built 26 years ago. And I think Eric is doing a super interesting bridge from something he has already been doing like for many years. So Eric never saw a difference between applied work for clients and making autonomous creative works. And I think it was mostly the outside world that judged it as you have to either be commercial creative or you have to be like an autonomous creative. And Eric didn't care. And that's also a very big inspiration to all the creatives here. Everybody has ideas outside of the commercial landscape that they want to explore. And by having Eric as a founding father, ambassador of the company, it's a very good example of what you can reach with creativity. And which you can see like with all the projects that he keeps pushing out. It's like a complete energy of new ideas every time. So every time I meet him, he has a new idea, he has a new project working on, and that's very inspiring. It's a very good question. I think if you institutionalize it, you make it part of the kind of official culture, it's not going to work. It will only put people like with a lot of pressure. And I think autonomous creative work should not come from pressure. It should come from fascination or from, it should be a passion project or like an insight or just a very fun thing. But if you institutionalize it and you create like 20% of your time, you're able to work on, I don't believe in that, because we all know that creativity also doesn't always come during the working hours. So the best ideas that I get are just before I go to sleep at night, and I write them down, and that's the creative moment. And some people that work here work differently. Everybody has its own rhythm, and I think if we kind of formalize that and really make it like the 20% rule, I think people would feel like they would almost feel forced to come up with side projects, and I don't believe in that. I think they should come from people themselves, and everybody here knows that there's room for projects like this. And maybe it's if it's very busy, then maybe during the day it's not possible to work on it. But when it's like finished, then we will of course help making it visible. And we have our own channels and we have our own presentations. So I think every creative here knows that there's room for good ideas, whether they're for commercial institutions, whether they are for NGOs or they are for completely personal projects. There's always room. And sometimes I also initiate kind of KesselsKramer initiated ideas. So for example, I'm doing a project about mental well-being at the moment, and I'm challenging my creatives to think about ways on how can we be relevant for the creative industry, and tell a little bit about the way we work with creativity and what is our opinion about it. So it's also more from a personal interest than from a brief that came in. That is a very good question. If you ask me, like, students need to make a decision whether they want to be more active on a brand side or in a studio, and I think you do not have to make that decision. And also, if you make the decision, tomorrow you can make a different decision. And I have the feeling that when I talk to students, that they feel that they have to follow a certain path, they have to work within a certain system. But that's obviously faux. That's all. The system is not something that is holy. It's something that you can question also. And I think with creativity, it is also a matter of you can spend your education creating fake ads for brands that you think are great and impress like a studio with the work that you've made during your school. Or you can also go around the corner, find people that fight for something. They have a local initiative, and help them with your techniques and your creativity and your talent. And I think that is much more interesting. I would rather work with people that are really engaged with their with the people that really make a change, than, for example, they make a fake McDonald's ad and they try to impress me that this is like the way they use creativity. Because I think that is what the difference, that's where you can make the difference. How are you going to use your superpowers as a creative? You can choose, but you can also change. And I think in the culture that we have right now, it's very difficult, because you can make a wrong decision every day. But it's also naive to think that if you make a wrong decision once, that you can never make another decision later. If you say, for example, today I think this, and then next week you think, oh, what I thought is complete bullshit and I want to think something different, then you should be able to do so and not burden yourself with saying like, hey, I should have chosen a more autonomous creative path. If you decide to first work at a studio and then after 5 years decide to go more autonomous, then you've learned probably a lot, and maybe you learned also what you don't want to be. And I think we should not be scared to learn what we do not want to become. And I think the only way to know that is to go through it. I worked at not so inspiring agencies that work for clients. I made work for clients that I would never ever work for again, because they do not contribute to a better planet. But I had to go through that to realize that, and I regret that. But now I think, okay, I had that experience, and that makes me more experienced in the future decisions that I make. So it's better to have that experience at a young age and be able to kind of steer away from that in the future than to find out when I'm 50 years old, for example.